I had just gotten my first full-time nursing job after graduating. I was thrilled. This was at St. Gabriel Medical Center, a mid-sized hospital not too far from my hometown. The pay was decent, the benefits were good, and most importantly, it was only a 15-minute drive from my apartment, asterisk. But what made it even better was that they were willing to take me on for overnight shifts. I actually liked the idea. Fewer patients, fewer doctors breathing down your neck, and less general chaos. I thought it would be easier. Asterisk, my very first night shift was a Thursday. The hospital looked completely different at night. The lights were dimmed, hallways were empty, and there was this constant low hum of machines echoing through the halls. It wasn't busy like during the day, but something about the silence made me feel small. Asterisk, I was assigned to the long-term care wing. That's where patients who were either recovering from major surgeries or those with chronic conditions stayed for weeks, sometimes months. Asterisk, the charge nurse that night was Mrs. Elkins. Sweet old lady, been working there for like 30 years. She gave me the quick rundown. Who needed meds at what time, who was stable, who liked extra attention. And then she said, almost offhandedly, "Oh, and room 413, Mrs. Caldwell. She's harmless. But if she starts talking about the tall man, don't let it spook you." Asterisk, I laughed a little nervously. The tall man? Asterisk, she smiled. She gets confused. Sometimes just redirect her. She's a sweet woman. Asterisk, I nodded. I mean, patients with dementia or hallucinations were nothing new to me. I had studied cases like that. No big deal. Asterisk, I did my rounds, gave out meds, fluffed pillows. Everything was pretty uneventful for the first few hours. Most patients were asleep by midnight, except Mrs. Caldwell. Room 413 was at the very end of the hallway. I knocked softly before entering. She was sitting up in bed, staring at the window. Asterisk, hi Mrs. Caldwell. I'm Lily, your night nurse. Tonight, how are you feeling? Asterisk, she turned her head toward me slowly. Her eyes were sharp and oddly focused. He's here tonight, she whispered. Asterisk, I paused. Who's here? The tall man. My stomach tensed just a bit, but I smiled and kept my voice. Light, you're safe, Mrs. Caldwell. There's no one here but me. Asterisk, she just kept staring at the window. He watches from the parking lot. He waits for someone to leave. Asterisk, I glanced at the window instinctively. Of course, I didn't see anything but the dim lights of the empty lot and a few parked cars. Asterisk, I gently redirected the conversation, helped her settle back down, and dimmed the lights. As I was leaving the room, she spoke again, softly. Don't let him follow you home. Asterisk, I stopped for a split second, but forced myself to keep walking. Patients say strange things. That's all it was. Asterisk, the rest of the shift went by without much incident. Around 3 a.m., I was restocking supplies in one of the storage rooms, humming to myself to stay awake. That's when I heard it. A light tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. Asterisk, at first, I thought it was some equipment malfunctioning, but then it got louder. More rhythmic. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the hallway. Asterisk, I slowly opened the storage room door and peeked my head out. The hallway was empty. Dead silent. Asterisk, just as I was about to close the door, I saw movement down the hall. A tall shadow standing at the end, near room 413. Asterisk, I blinked, thinking maybe I was seeing things. Maybe it was just the way the shadows played with the dim lights. Asterisk, but then the figure moved. Slowly, toward the stairwell exit. Asterisk, I felt my heart race. I stayed frozen for a second, unsure if I should run or follow. No, it's nothing, just your mind playing tricks on you. That's what I kept telling myself. Asterisk, but when I walked back toward the nurse's station, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The door to room 413 was slightly ajar. I knew I had closed it earlier. Asterisk, I stepped inside to check on Mrs. Caldwell. She was asleep. But the window blinds were now open. Wide open, asterisk the parking lot was empty. Just a few flickering lights. Asterisk as I turned to leave, Mrs. Caldwell mumbled in her sleep. "He's inside now." Asterisk I didn't sleep when I got home that morning. And that was only my first night. I used to work the overnight shift at a psychiatric hospital. Asterisk. Not one of those big fancy ones you see in movies. Ours was old, outdated, asterisk. Cracked tiles on the floor, yellowing walls, buzzing fluorescent lights that flickered. Just enough to make you uncomfortable. It had 3 wings. Acute, long-term, and what we called the locked ward. Asterisk. That's where the most dangerous patients stayed. The ones no one talked about. I had been there about 6 months when I was scheduled for my first solo overnight in the locked ward. Asterisk I wasn't. Nervous at first. The patients were heavily medicated. Security cameras monitored. Every corner. All the doors were locked. What could possibly happen? The first few hours were quiet. I did my rounds. Checked the vitals. Logged everything. Nothing unusual. Around 2 a.m. I was sitting at the nurse's desk when the intercom crackled. It was the security room. "Nurse station, do you copy?" I pressed the button. "Go ahead. Asterisk you might want to check room 12. The camera keeps glitching." I glanced at the monitor. The feed for room 12 was static. Then, for a split second, it cleared, and I saw something that made my stomach turn. Patient, Mr. Fields, was standing perfectly still in the center of the room, facing the camera, staring directly into it. Asterisk I grabbed my keys and headed down the hall. The air felt colder. The buzzing light seemed louder. Asterisk. My footsteps echoed too much. Asterisk I reached room 12. Asterisk. The small observation window showed Mr. Fields exactly where I saw him on camera, standing, smiling. I knocked on the door. Asterisk Mr. Fields? You're supposed to be in bed. He didn't respond. Didn't blink. I opened the small speaking slot. "Mr. Fields, are you all right?" Finally, he spoke. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "He's walking the halls." "Tonight," I frowned. "Who?" "The man in the mask." I felt a cold chill run down my back. Asterisk. There were no other patients wandering. Everyone was locked in. It was impossible. Asterisk. Go back to bed. "Mr. Fields." He tilted his head slowly. "You'll hear him soon." Asterisk. I locked the door back. Up and walked briskly toward the station. Asterisk. The cameras were still glitching. More feeds going static. The security room called again. "Nurse, are you seeing this?" "Yes," I said quietly. All the hallway cameras went dark at once. Black screens, except for one. Camera 6. It showed a section of the hallway right outside the locked staff entrance. And standing there was someone. A tall man. Asterisk wearing a plain white mask. Not a medical mask. A blank, expressionless mask covering his whole face. Asterisk. He stood motionless. Facing the camera, I froze. There was no way anyone could have gotten inside. Asterisk. The security guard said over the radio. Asterisk. There's nobody in that hallway. I just checked it. But the camera still showed him, standing, waiting. Then slowly the masked man tilted his head, exactly like Mr. Fields did moments ago. I hit the panic button to summon backup, but there was no response. The lights above me flickered violently. The buzzing grew louder, almost deafening. Then the feed went completely black. Asterisk. When backup finally arrived an hour later, everything was normal. No one in the hallway. No signs of forced entry. Asterisk. The camera system rebooted itself. They told me it was likely a system glitch, stress, overwork, but I knew what I saw. Asterisk. And Mr. Fields? Asterisk. The next day, he wouldn't speak a word. His eyes stayed locked on me the entire time, and every few seconds, he'd tilt his head, just slightly, like he knew. I used to work night shifts at a small rural hospital. The kind of place where you know everyone's name, and every creak in the floorboards becomes familiar. But there was one room. Nobody liked being assigned to room 20-2. It wasn't that anything bad had officially happened there. No strange deaths. No criminal patients. But the staff all agreed that room felt wrong. It was colder than the others. The equipment malfunctioned. More often, the call light would trigger randomly, and most disturbing of all, patients who stayed there reported hearing whispers, even when they were completely alone. We all called it the whisper room. One night, about 4 months into my job, I got assigned to monitor room 22. A new patient had just been admitted. An elderly woman named Mrs. Harper. She had been brought in for observation after a fainting episode at home. Around midnight. I checked on her. She was awake, sitting up, eyes wide. I asked if she was feeling okay. She whispered back. Do you hear them? I paused. Hear what, Mrs. Harper? The voices, they're angry tonight. I tried to reassure her. There's no one here but us. You're safe. She shook her head. They said you shouldn't be here. I smiled politely, did a quick vitals check, and adjusted her blankets. As I was about to leave, she grabbed my wrist tightly. He's behind you. I spun around instantly. The room was empty. I gently pried her hand from my arm, smiled again, and left the room. In the hallway, I exhaled and shook my head. I told myself it was just her disorientation. Her confusion. But then the call light for room 22 went off. I had just left. When I returned, Mrs. Harper was sitting completely still. Her eyes were closed. The monitor beeped normally. Her breathing was steady, but faintly. Very faintly. I thought I heard something. A whisper. It was so soft, I couldn't make out words, like multiple voices overlapping each other. I leaned in closer. The whispers stopped. I stood back up, uneasy. Before leaving again, I made sure everything was in order. But this time, I left the door slightly open. An hour later, while doing paperwork at the nurse's desk, I heard it. A low static sound came through the intercom speaker. It was patched to every patient room, normally used for communication. But this was different. Through the static, I heard soft voices, like whispers blending together, echoing in layers. They kept repeating one word. Leave. 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 I rushed back to room 20-2. Mrs. Harper was sitting upright again. But this time she was smiling. They like you now, she whispered. My skin crawled. Suddenly, every monitor in the hallway began alarming at once. Multiple rooms, multiple patients. As staff rushed in to check vitals, all the alarms reset themselves. Every patient was stable. No explanation. Later that morning, when my shift finally ended, I walked past room 22 one last time. Inside, Mrs. Harper was fast asleep, but written on the condensation of the inside window was one word. Stay. The next week, Mrs. Harper was discharged. Healthy. Stable. But the call light in room 22 kept going off on its own. Night after night. The room is still in use. New patients still report the whispers. I never volunteered for that wing again.